At 4 a.m., the world's quietest hour, something ancient and mechanical awakened beneath Ukraine's frozen soil. Inside camouflaged containers scattered across empty fields, the countdowns blinked red. Motors hummed to life. One by one, wings unfolded like metal locusts. Within seconds, 271 kamikaze drones, lightweight, cheap, relentless, roared upward into the black sky. They climbed through mist and silence, disappearing into the east, their flight patterns synchronized to the second. From Luhansk to Poltava, relay trucks guided their signal arcs. They were ghosts in formation, no pilots, no mercy, each one carrying a heart of high explosive, roughly 5 kilograms of steel and TNT bound for Moscow. The operation's codename, Iron Corridor. At 4:07 a.m., radar screens across Belgorod began to flicker. Operators thought it was interference. By the time they recalibrated, the swarm was already above them, moving fast, nearly 200 kilometers per hour, hugging the tree line at an altitude under 1,200 feet. Their infrared signatures were too faint for early interception. To the naked eye, they looked like moving stars, cutting through dawn's first haze. Each drone cost less than $5,000. Yet together they represented a storm capable of shattering the illusion of safety over the Russian capital. Inside a command bunker near Kyiv, officers stared at synchronized monitors. The mission map pulsed with blue dots inching toward the target. "Wave 1 approaching Corridor 1," a voice announced. The control room held its breath. Then static filled the air as electronic warfare jammers activated. Screens went black, an intentional blackout to shield transmissions from counter-tracking. Beyond those walls, the hum of electric rotors merged into a rising metallic chorus. At 4:32 a.m., the first explosions echoed near Ramenskoye, 30 kilometers southeast of Moscow. Surveillance cameras caught brief flashes, 1, 2, 3, as fuel depots erupted. Windows shattered across the suburb. Glass cascaded from apartments like glittering rain. In seconds, the city's sleep was broken. Sirens wailed through the still air. Russia's air defense operators scrambled to their consoles. "Unidentified aerial objects, multiple bearings," someone shouted. The early readings showed dozens, then hundreds. A corridor of destruction stretched toward the capital. In the Moscow region, anti-air batteries powered up. The Pantsir S-1 systems rotated, radar dishes sweeping the sky. Missiles armed. Operators tracked the swarm, but the drones flew low, erratic, unpredictable. Their onboard AI adjusted paths automatically, weaving between radar beams. Several drones skimmed so low they kicked up dust along country roads, startling patrol convoys. Russia's S-400 units, designed for supersonic missiles, now faced a swarm of slow, unpredictable targets. For every drone shot down, 3 slipped through. At 4:46 a.m., the first strike hit an industrial storage site. A white-blue flash split the sky, then a column of smoke rose high above the treetops. Fire alarms blared across Domodedovo Airport. Flights diverted, runways shut down. Moscow's emergency broadcast urged residents to stay indoors. The horizon glowed red. The swarm had found its mark. Ukraine's coordination was surgical. The attack came in 3 staggered waves, 150 drones at minute 0, 71 more after a 7-minute delay, and a final batch of 50 decoys looping north. Each drone operated autonomously but responded to real-time corrections through encrypted bursts. Their algorithms avoided redundant targets, spreading impact zones evenly. Inside Kyiv's operations trailer, one technician whispered, "They're in." For a moment, silence. Then, impact alerts everywhere. Moscow's command centers erupted in panic. Communication lines overloaded. "They're heading for the radar grid," shouted a colonel. Screens blinked red. Anti-drone lasers activated on city rooftops, cutting arcs of white light through the dark, but the targets were too many. The air defense network's strength became its weakness. Every system demanded coordination, every second lost meant another hit. At 5 a.m., explosions rippled across Zhukovsky and Litkarino. A drone slammed into a logistics warehouse, detonating fuel barrels. Flames climbed into the sky, painting everything in orange. A security camera recorded a figure sprinting through the inferno before collapsing in the shockwave. Debris rained like shrapnel confetti. A second drone struck an empty radar truck, flipping it sideways. The impact blew out windows across an entire block. Within the Kremlin's underground command, officers struggled to piece together the pattern. "How many?" a general demanded. "We count at least 271, sir." "From where?" "Multiple launch sites. Unknown vectoring." "They're using line-of-sight jumps. We can't jam them all." "Then do it manually." Orders snapped across channels, but jamming frequencies only knocked out half. Ukraine's swarm adapted. Artificial intelligence rerouted commands autonomously. The city was under siege by code. Then, this happened. At 5:13 a.m., one drone slipped through the last defensive ring and struck a fuel storage tank outside Moscow's southern district. The blast sent a fireball 500 feet high. Shockwaves cracked asphalt and shattered thousands of windows. Cell towers went dark. A mushroom of black smoke climbed into the dawn sky as alarms howled across the capital. Residents filmed from balconies, their voices trembling. "It's coming here, look!" Russia's retaliation began instantly. Within 10 minutes, interceptor missiles tore upward, slicing contrails through the haze. The first salvo destroyed 50 drones mid-air, glowing like fireworks. Yet for every interception, fragments still fell, burning wreckage, igniting rooftops and highways. Command trucks raced through Moscow streets as soldiers fired small arms skyward. The capital's airspace had become chaos. At 5:30 a.m., Russian fighter jets, Su-35s and MiG-31s, scrambled from nearby bases. Their Mach 2 engines thundered across the horizon, slicing through low cloud layers. Pilots engaged thermal lock, firing air-to-air missiles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each at drones costing less than 10. It was a lopsided war of economics. $1 million of defense to kill a $5,000 machine. Even so, Ukraine's swarm persisted. One drone managed to graze a Panzer launcher parked beside a highway, detonating on impact. The explosion blew the vehicle sideways, toppling it like a toy. Flames rolled through its radar dish. Another drone crashed near a communications tower, breaking its cables, plunging an entire district into darkness. The skyline flickered as one grid after another went offline. Moscow, city of 13 million, felt its pulse falter. At 5:45 a.m., a second wave entered. These were faster, smarter, heavier. Each carried a 7-kilogram charge and flew slightly higher, around 1,000 feet, to avoid debris from the first assault. Their targets were not depots this time, but eyes, radar arrays, communication centers, and anti-drone control hubs. When the first of these new drones hit a radar post, the blast sent sparks into the night sky like a burning fountain. Operators inside had barely seconds to duck before the room filled with fire. The second wave tore through Moscow's defenses. Anti-drone lasers glowed, interceptors roared, but still they came. Out of the 71 drones in that wave, 48 were shot down. 23 reached their targets. A fuel station exploded near Kashira Highway. A logistics hub burned for hours. Smoke drifted across the city as daylight rose. Russia's retaliation escalated again. Long-range cruise missiles lifted from Kaluga Oblast, streaking toward Ukrainian staging zones at speeds over Mach 2. They climbed to 40,000 feet before descending sharply to 5,000, weaving through valleys to avoid radar lock. But Ukraine was ready. Patriot and Iris-T systems in the west came alive, launching interceptors in glowing spirals. 24 of 30 missiles were destroyed mid-air. 6 made impact, leveling a small hangar complex. As fire crews fought the blazes in Moscow, Ukrainian officers monitored live telemetry from satellites. The cost analysis scrolled on screen. A few $1 million in drones versus tens of millions in damage, strategic paralysis, and the psychological breach of Russia's inner capital. For the first time since the invasion began, Moscow was vulnerable, not by nuclear strike or sabotage, but by a swarm of metal bees guided by silent code. At 6 a.m., smoke curled above Moscow like bruises on the dawn. The drone engines had faded, replaced by sirens and chaos. Russia's air defense minister delivered the first statement. All drones destroyed. Situation under control. But behind the scenes, officers stared at damaged radars and lost communication links. The war had changed overnight, and somewhere across the Ukrainian steppe, in a quiet mobile trailer, a drone pilot removed his headset. He looked at the static on his monitor, the final signal fading into silence, and whispered, "They saw us?" Then he stood, stretching stiff fingers, and walked outside into the morning light where another set of launchers waited. Already humming, at 6:30 a.m., dawn bled through the smoke. Moscow was a canvas of broken light and drifting ash. In the distance, faint sirens echoed through the suburbs as firefighters battled infernos born from the night's swarm. The smell of scorched metal, diesel, and fear hung heavy over the streets. Russia's Air Defense Command issued a mass recall order. Tanks and armored vehicles positioned across bridges, soldiers lining rooftops with machine guns. But deep beneath the chaos, in Kiev's cold underground nerve center, the mission wasn't over. The drone operators stared at the last flickering signals on their monitors, tiny blue dots moving eastward. A second phase was already in motion. At 6:37 a.m., 71 drones that had delayed their activation by hours rose from hidden platforms across northeastern Ukraine. This wave was more advanced. Stealth-coated propellers, carbon fiber frames, infrared dampers. They moved like a living storm, almost invisible to radar, cruising at speeds of 250 km/h, just below Mach 0.2. Their payloads were heavier, 7 kilograms of mixed thermobaric and fragmentation warheads designed to rip through reinforced steel. The target grid, command centers, communications hubs, and electronic warfare arrays circling Moscow's core. As these drones crossed into Russian airspace, Moscow's sky defenses were still reeling from the earlier strike. Half the Panzer units were being reloaded. Several S-400 radars remained offline due to debris interference. Russian radar operators began to notice new pings, small, sharp blips on screens that flickered between static and noise. "Not possible," one of them whispered. "It can't be another wave." Seconds later, it was confirmed. The swarm had returned. At 6:50 a.m., the first of the new drones entered the Podolsk sector, slicing low between high-voltage towers. Searchlights swept the sky like nervous eyes, but they caught only smoke trails and reflections. A drone dipped beneath the beams, engine whispering. It slammed into a fuel convoy heading north toward the city. The explosion tore through 6 tankers, painting the road in flame. A chain of blasts followed, boom after boom, echoing across kilometers. Witnesses described the fire as a living serpent crawling through the night. Russia's Ministry of Defense went into overdrive. From a bunker beneath Taganka Square, emergency communications relayed intercept coordinates to every functioning air defense battery. Su-34 fighter jets were scrambled once again, climbing through the rising smoke. Each jet carried air-to-air missiles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, chasing drones that cost less than an automobile. The absurdity was not lost on anyone inside command. Russia's most expensive weapons were being drained by Ukraine's cheapest. At 7:03 a.m., one drone found its target, a radar control station near Kolomna. It plunged vertically from 1,200 feet, its camera capturing the final milliseconds before impact. The blast shattered concrete walls, sending debris across the highway. Inside, operators were thrown from their chairs as consoles erupted in sparks. For 30 seconds, Moscow's air defense network went blind. The blackout opened a corridor and 32 other drones streamed through, unhindered, toward the city's southern industrial zone. By 7:10 a.m., fires burned in 3 separate districts. One drone struck a telecom hub, severing links to the regional defense grid. Another dove into a gas distribution facility, causing a shockwave so strong that cars flipped along a nearby overpass. From the Kremlin bunker, officers watched security feeds go dark one by one. "We are losing eyes," said an aide. "Then use the ears," a general growled, turning to radio intercept units. But the static only grew louder. Ukraine's jammers were flooding the spectrum. Meanwhile, across Ukraine's border towns, mobile command trucks adjusted frequencies, guiding the swarm via satellite relays. Every drone followed a distinct vector. If one was shot down, 2 adapted to fill its route. The algorithms learned in real time, dodging radar, hugging rivers, following heat currents. It wasn't chaos anymore. It was orchestration. At 7:24 a.m., a drone skimmed over the rooftops of Domodedovo, its onboard camera broadcasting live. Below, civilians ran through streets covering their heads. The drone tilted slightly, locked onto a heat source, a stationary command van, and dived. The blast flattened the vehicle, scattering fragments across the tarmac. The camera cut to static. Russian interceptors fired hundreds of rounds skyward, tracers arcing like red comets through the smoky light. Dozens of drones fell, trailing sparks and debris. Yet 23 reached their objectives. Among them, one hit a fuel tank depot south of Moscow, producing a roaring pillar of flame. The fire's glow was visible from the Kremlin. Windows vibrated in their frames. Inside the capital's heart, soldiers rushed to seal government bunkers. By 7:40 a.m., the city's skyline shimmered behind a veil of gray and orange smoke. News agencies reported aerial incursions but withheld numbers. Emergency services spoke of fires of industrial scale. For ordinary Muscovites, it felt like the end of a long illusion that war was distant, something fought on screens. Now it was above their rooftops. At 7:52 a.m., the order for retaliation came. Russia launched 30 caliber cruise missiles from positions in Kaluga Oblast and Bryansk, each valued at several $1 million. They ascended in arcs of white smoke, climbing to 40,000 feet before leveling toward Ukraine. Their speed reached Mach 2, their payloads half-ton warheads aimed at drone launch sites near Sumy and Poltava. At 8:05 a.m., radar operators in western Ukraine saw the incoming wave. "Missiles inbound," a commander warned. Sirens screamed across the countryside. Patriot and Iris-T systems rotated skyward, launching interceptors. In the next 4 minutes, the night above Ukraine lit up like a thunderstorm of steel. 24 of the missiles were destroyed mid-air. 6 made impact, striking a hangar complex and 2 empty launch pads. 1 technician was killed, 3 injured, yet the command remained intact. The exchange painted a grim symmetry. Drones for missiles, speed for numbers, precision for endurance. Both sides bled resources, but only one side gained psychological ground. By daring to strike Moscow, by showing the capital's vulnerability, Ukraine had crossed a threshold that words could never achieve. At 8:20 a.m., smoke continued to pour from southern Moscow. Fire crews reported secondary explosions as ammunition depots ignited. Debris rained onto highways, closing routes into the city. Traffic halted. Panic spread. The smell of burning plastic and aviation fuel coated the morning air. Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations urged calm, but radio chatter revealed panic at every level. "We're hit again. We lost comms. Another strike near Vanukovo." Voices overlapping, desperate. Inside Kiev's control trailer, the operators watched live footage from satellite relays. One of them exhaled slowly. 200 drones gone, he murmured. 70 still operational. The mission's architect nodded. Enough. He turned off his monitor. Around him, silence hung heavy, the silence that follows awe. At 8:45 a.m., Moscow's early light revealed the full scale of destruction. Craters pocked the industrial outskirts. Twisted rebar jutted from burned foundations. Entire streets were cordoned off. The Russian Defense Ministry released a statement claiming the majority of drones were intercepted. Yet civilians' phones told a different story. Dozens of videos of fireballs, shattered glass, smoke rising where factories once stood. The morning brought both victory and reckoning. Ukraine had pierced the armor of a nuclear giant with nothing but swarm intelligence and steel wings. The drones had cost less than a single fighter jet, yet forced one of the world's most defended capitals into blackout. And still, both sides prepared for what would come next. Russia's retaliatory strikes would continue. Ukraine's engineers were already designing the next generation, faster, quieter, deadlier. The war was no longer just territory and trenches. It was an algorithmic duel between minds and machines. At 9 a.m., over the smoldering fields near Moscow, a firefighter looked up through the haze. The sky was empty now, only the faint hum of jets fading in the distance. He wiped the ash from his face and muttered, "It's not over." And somewhere hundreds of kilometers away, in a Ukrainian control bunker, a new command sequence began to load. The next swarm awaited ignition.